Well, let's bring into the conversation Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, who is a former US Special Envoy for Ukraine under President Trump. He joins us from Washington. General Kellogg, what a pleasure to have you with us on the program today. A couple of days ago, you praised President Trump for doing, quote, an exceptional job with Operation Epic Fury. I'd like to ask for your assessment on this day 6 of what this joint US-Israeli operation in Iran has achieved so far.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. It's good to be with you. Look, let me start at the high level and kind of work it down to a more reasonable level. This is not something new because President Trump has been trying to do this since the first Trump administration, when we walked away from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA. And there was a concern at the time that they were moving towards developing the Iranians a nuclear weapon. They were enriching uranium well above the 3 to 5%, which you need for hospitals or anything commercial. And they were doing a breakout to 60% or greater. You get to about 80% of enrichment, you're going to have potential to have weapons-grade uranium. And then where are you going to be if you develop a nuclear weapon? At the same time, we were concerned about their missile fleet they were developing. They had missiles, not ICBMs, they had medium-range ballistic missiles and local missiles that could range all the way to France. And the question was, why are you doing that? So it was a destabilization of the region. That was a big concern, destabilization, because if they got a weapon, would the Saudis get a weapon? Would the UAE get a weapon? Would the Omanis get a weapon? Who would get weapons of mass destruction? So the intent was to prevent that. So, and when you look at that, that's where his kind of thought process was. If he was just trying to prevent somebody getting a weapon with a theocratic government, meaning the Iranians, that would chant in the morning death to America or death to Israel, basically death to anybody. So all those things came together, and the president decided to ask, realizing it was an enormous task. And what I mean by that, Michael, when you look at Iran, it's a huge country. When you take, it's the size of the UK, Spain, France, and Germany combined. So it wasn't an easy task to do. But the whole intent was just to, one, eliminate their developing of a weapon of mass destruction, a nuclear weapon, which would destabilize totally the Middle East. As a end result, and we're into the fight already, into the war now, the fact is we've eliminated most of the theocratic leaders that you see in Iran right now, kind of bring them back to the kind of the rule of nations, the friendly nations that are out there. When the president says, well, this could be 3 weeks or 4 weeks, the whole intent is probably regime change, in the sense moving from a theocratic government to a secular government would be the best thing for the Gulf to happen. Get rid of that friction point that we have, not only for ourselves, but our friends, the Saudis, the Saudis, our friends throughout the Gulf region. So that's where we're at today. And so far today, the 6th day of the operation, it's turned out to be quite successful. I mean, look at the amount of equipment that we have lost compared to their loss of equipment. And it's just dramatic. And our dramatic is also, if I would say to any leader of a nation, you know, the Russians gave them, and the Chinese have given the Iranians their best equipment, the S-400 air defense systems, their drone systems, their ICBMs. We've taken them out and with no loss. So I'd say to anybody, my recommendation is don't buy Russian, don't buy Chinese. We have proven we are first in class, and go from there.
General Kellogg, let me just put this to you. We've heard from the US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying that the US has near air supremacy, so presumably dominance over Iranian airspace. And I'm wondering what that changes as far as this joint US-Israeli operation is concerned.
Yeah, it allows you operationally, when you know the three realms of operations: strategic, operational, and tactical. It allows you to use all of your equipment now. For example, we just started using the B-52s. You can use them over target. When we started, we used standoff weapons, meaning precision weapons you can fire from a distance. So what that allows you to do, it allows you to use your whole weapon suite that you have in your inventory. It's just not the F-22s or the F-35 or the Lucas system. Now you can use the F-15 Strike Eagle. You can use the B-52s. You can use everything you've got in your inventory. So it allows you to ramp up, gives you more combat power. So where their combat power has been diminished, going down, ours is actually going up. So we can allow more things to happen on the battlefield. So in that regard, when you get to air supremacy, you basically made sure that you can fly and do anything over your targets that you wanted.
And what are those targets? What are the main targets you think Israel and the United States has been going for up until now? And do you see that range of targets changing?
Now, to back to front, I don't see it changing until we eliminate them. I think the target list is you look at the nuclear devices, you look at the enrichment facilities that you have. We all know about Natanz or Fordo or Esfahan, but any place that has got nuclear, an ability to develop nuclear weapons. The second is their missile fleet. They have the most advanced missile fleet. And so we're taking out their production, we're taking out the missile fleets and the drones as well. And then the third issue is leadership. You're decapitating leadership. It's a theocratic government. It's religious-led. When you look at it, and we're taking out all the leaders. You know, every time there's a new leader announced, like so-and-so, he's gone by the end of the day. So those three things put together is kind of the campaign plan in the most gross levels. We're not talking about putting troops on the ground. Iran, that's the reason I made that comment about Iran being so big. And you do it. There are certain places you can use ground troops. And there may be a way to do that, which is securing Kurg Island as an example, which is 80 to 90% of their, not production level, but their transit level. They load tankers. They load up to 10 super tankers from that facility and able to transport it. So you're attacking them economically as well. So they're looking at the whole range, military, economic, leadership as well. So those three targets sets are going to continue to be attacked until they're basically none. And then they'll make the determination, hopefully the Iranian people will make the determination that we don't like a theocratic government. We want a rather diplomatic or a much more of a democratic type government, but that'll be up to the Iranian people, not up to us.
Okay, so you're not excluding the necessity for some troops on the ground in some capacity, perhaps at a later stage. Is my understanding correct?
Well, yeah, I think where you'd want to put them, the answer is yes and no. I don't think you're going to involve the 82nd and 101st Airborne Division going on the ground in Iran. But there are certain places you could use them. I'll give you two. One, you could put them on Kurg Island, and it is an island, and it's offshore, and you can protect your troops, and you hit them economically, because 90% of their, 80, 90% of their oil comes through Kurg Island. The second place is on the Straits of Hormuz. You take down places like Bandar Abbas, so you take a place where you make sure they can't do something from the shoreline that can impact any ships going through the Straits of Hormuz. And what I'm talking about, anti-ship missiles that they could put on the land and shoot. We've already sunk their Navy, so I'm not worried about the naval assets. But those are the two places. Other than that, I don't see a place you'd want to put troops. When you look at the geography of that country, it would really be hard to do. And just the sheer size of the country would make it hard to do. So I don't think ground troops will be put on the ground. I just mentioned two areas that have a possibility, a potential for doing that, and that's all.
Okay. Let's talk about the strikes that Iran has been carrying out across the Gulf on GCC countries. I'd like to ask you whether the air supremacy we were talking about just a few minutes ago is going to enable the United States and Israel to put a stop to those strikes that Iran has been carrying out. Is that something that will become more possible as a result of that dominance over Iranian airspace?
Yeah, Tom, I think it will, because each day goes by, we are tracking the reduction of their ability to shoot medium-range ballistic missiles or drones, which they've got a huge inventory. So that is not going to go to zero for a short period of time. That's the reason the president has said this campaign isn't a one and done one day or a week. It can go up to a month just to eliminate their capacity to produce and to shoot those kind of missile systems or drone systems in the future. So as every day goes by, their ability to shoot medium-range ballistic missiles or drones goes down. So the answer is yes, and there's a reason for that, both their supply and our ability to target them as we go forward.
And General Kellogg, what's your understanding, what's your interpretation of why Iran sought to target those GCC countries in the first place? What do you think Iran was hoping it would achieve?
Well, I think they were hoping there'd be some reaction and put pressure on the United States. Here's the problem you've got, Tom, is when you start, and the reason why we're doing it is when you start taking out the leadership of a country, the command and control of a country, their ability to make good decisions goes down because they don't have the leadership, they don't have the counsels, the advice of senior advisors. So every time you do that, it's great. And what happens is somebody clearly told them, well, if we do this, then it's a payback to not only the Gulf Coast, the Gulf countries, but also countries like, or places like Cyprus or out of the region as well. So their ability to do that is trying to get influence in the United States. I would say that's really a dumb move because you're not going to influence President Trump. He's going to react the way he wants to, and he's going to get the advice from his advisors on what to do next. And then the Israelis are doing that. In the long term, this whole effort kind of resets the Middle East. When you look at it, you get the development of the Abraham Accords. It brings a threat for everybody down, meaning the Iranians. We know that the Iranians and the Iraqis have fought before. It eliminates that potential. And you go back from being a theocratic government, going back to being, what I would call bring a nation back into the Council of Nations.
There have been lots of developments. Things have moved very quickly these last 6 days. I'd like to ask you about one notable development. Kurdish forces have begun a ground operation inside Iranian territory. It appears they are supporting the US war effort. And I'd like to ask you what you think the significance of this is and what do you think it will change?
I don't think it's going to change anything. I think it's going to change very little. I mean, it sounds really good. The Kurds have launched a ground operation, but they don't have the combat power to do anything. They don't have an air force, except they're using ours. They don't have any long-range artillery. They can't do anything in holding and seizing terrain. I think it's a good soundbite, but I don't think operationally and tactically it's going to do anything. I mean, maybe it make the Kurds feel good, but I think politically it won't do anything. And, when you look at it, and I mentioned, I should have said this earlier, when President Trump is doing this, he's not doing this for himself. He's doing this for the next generation. So he doesn't have a generation of Americans and allies as well that have to deal with this. He wants to deal with it now, get it off the table, and we can focus in on China from the United States or anywhere else. And it allows us to basically develop that ability to do that. So I answered the Kurd question, and I had to go back and doing it why we're doing this. Why Trump thought he needed to do this now.
Okay, I mean, just reverting to the point about ground troops and boots on the ground, and obviously hesitance and reluctance on the part of the United States to go down that road, given history of the last 2 decades. I mean, the Iraqi Kurds do share a long border with Western Iran. Could they not, therefore, fill that void of ground troops that perhaps the United States might not want to deploy?
Well, sure they could. Tom, they really can do that. But it's one of those, they don't have the combat power or the ability to do that. You've got to have the ability to do that. And they really have got basically light infantry is where the Kurds really have. And they can penetrate to a certain distance, but they're not going to be a true game changer. It just causes probably the Iranians another problem. But I don't think they're going to make a large difference in the fight going on right now.
Okay. We have been told that Iran has not requested any military aid from either Russia or China. We know they are allied. They carried out joint military operations only in the last couple of weeks. Do you see either of Russia or China perhaps coming to Iran's aid in its hour of need?
No, I don't. I think they're kind of wanting to sit this one out. I think because they looked at their equipment and their ability to react, and it's really almost limited. They can't really do anything. They've now given the Iranians their best systems, meaning their air defense systems or their missile systems, and didn't do anything. I think where it's going to affect is the Chinese, because, for example, if we stop the flow of oil to China, that even though they don't take all the oil from Iran, 10% of their industry, their imports are Iranian oil. So if you start cutting that out, it's going to affect them economically. And the Chinese, I think if they'll develop anything and send the Iranians any help, it'll be on this ship, or correction, shore-to-ship missile systems that they can use in Bandar Abbas or somewhere in the Gulf. But right now, I think they're saying that, I'm going to set this out. I think that's a clear message to those that have depended on Russia and China to help them, that when the push comes to shove, they won't be there, or if they are there, they're going to bring in substandard equipment.
Okay, I want to ask you another question. 2 days ago, you said on Fox News that you believe that the Iranian people would soon take control of their government. Why? There haven't been any signs, have there, of Iranians rising up against their leaders this last 6 days since the US Israeli operation began. Why do you think that's happened? Why hasn't that happened yet, do you think?
Well, I think partially is because so many of the leaders and the forces were killed by the Iranians last month when they did go into the streets. There are reports of up to 30,000 were killed. I don't know the number on that, but that's just a number. So they went to the streets once and they got whacked pretty good. And the president of the United States has told them to stay indoors and do anything. I think as the ability, especially of the Revolutionary Guard, is diminished because they really protect the state, you're going to see that change. And I think you're going to start seeing more popular forces come out in the open and demonstrate against it when the threat is limited. The Army's not really involved yet, the Iranian Army. It's really the Republican Guard who's been involved with it, and they really protect the state. So I think the jury's still out. It's only 6 days. Let's see what happens next week.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. We're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us here on Arabiya English. Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, thank you for your time, sir.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.